All right. Welcome to it, everybody. Another edition of Liam's Hockey here on Tuesday night, April the 14th. And a little bit of news for you. So we're doing a little test tomorrow night, but if everything goes well, we may be able to do we're going to try and do a live hockey trivia hit show. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. It's going to be on social media anyway. It's on this app called Be Live. I've just started using Zoom, so I don't even know what this one is. We're going to try a test on it tomorrow night. But as I understand it, it's going to be in conjunction with Facebook Live, if I understand correctly. So we're doing a test tomorrow night. I'll have some news on Thursday, and we'll see if we can set that up. And if anybody's kicking around Saturday night and want to check it out, then I typically don't do this day in hockey, so maybe we'll try that and see how it goes. I'm not sure of all the details, how it's working. I know I've been asked to supply some questions, and I think they want me to take some questions, but regardless, we'll hopefully have some information on Thursday about that. So what the hell else? Well, we've got a couple of great toasts coming up later, that's for sure, so I'm looking forward to that. My good friend, of course, Mr. Jameson's Irish Whiskey. Today, on today's date, April the 14th, a little bit more of a statistical night for you than normal. I do have a little sidebar story or two here and there, but starting right off with this day, April 14th, 1983, I just wanted to go with this because, to be honest with you, I didn't know it. Just being, full disclosure here, that Edmonton beat Calgary in Game 1 of their playoff runs that particular season in 1983. As most of you know, the Oilers ended up going all the way to the Stanley Cup Final before losing to the New York Islanders. So they ended up winning this series. But in Game 1, they won it 6-3, and Mark Messier got 4 goals. Pretty good game. Paul Reinhart for Calgary scored a hat trick. His first of 2. The next year, he recorded another hat trick, and he remains one of only 11 defensemen with hat tricks in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But that's the first time in NHL history that players on opposing teams got a hat trick. I didn't know that. Not that I necessarily thought there was a bunch of times that it would have happened before, but I guess I just kind of thought maybe there had been. I never filed it away. So I came across that today and thought, hey, that's pretty neat, pretty cool. So I thought I'd throw it out there. It's really just a stat. I mean, obviously could go on about Reinhart and Mess, but not going to do that tonight because I got some other things. So on this date as well, as we move on to number 2 here, Jamie Storr, a goaltender who some of you may remember, got a shutout. Got his 13th career shutout in a 1-0 win over Anaheim. So unto itself, no big deal. But Jamie Storr holds a pretty unique distinction himself in hockey history. Hockey trivia, hockey history. All right, let's go with history on this one. So since 1983-84, the NHL has announced an all-rookie team in conjunction with the first and second official all-star teams at the end of the season. And there's a few pretty neat anomalies surrounding the all-rookie team. One being that Pavel Bure won the Calder Trophy in 1992 and didn't make the all-rookie team. Because in those days, they went hardcore by positions, and they gave the wing position, the right wing position, to Tony Amonte, and Pavel Bure won the Calder. That's how political some of this stuff can get. Believe me, winning trophies and everything else, despite the media votes and general manager votes and everything else, just like the Hockey Hall of Fame, a lot of it's colored by politics. This next 2 are not in regards to the all-rookie team. And Jamie Storr became the first and remains one of only 2 players in NHL history to make not 1, but 2 all-rookie teams. You're going, wait a minute, how the hell can you do that? But yeah, so if you don't play 25 games and you're deemed to be the best rookie, at least by position, to make the official team, the all-rookie team, you're still eligible as a rookie the next time you play. So in 1998, Jamie Storr was deemed to be the best rookie goaltender. He beat out guys like Kevin Hodgson and Dan Cloutier. And then the next year, he was deemed to be the best rookie again because I think he only played like 14 or 15 games. And I mean, a rookie goalie doesn't mean you're necessarily coming in like Tony Esposito in 1970. And so the next year he beat out Peter Skudra, and he went back-to-back jacks on the NHL All-Rookie team. Pretty cool. Well, hold on. Jake Allen went one better. I'll give Jake Allen, and Jake Allen's from Fredericton, New Brunswick. So a shout out to my dear friends, the Gunters and the Shaws from the Fredericton area, the town itself, or Devon and what have you, various locales in and around Freddie Beach. But they're Maritimers, they're New Brunswick people, they're Fredericton people, and so a shout out to them. But Jake Allen, also a Fredericton guy, and in 2013, great numbers too. Like, he had an awesome save percentage, good goals against average, 2.22 or something in that range, and he won the position as goaltender on the all-rookie team in 2013. Okay, fair enough. 2014, with St. Louis. 2014, he doesn't even get a sniff. Down to the minors the whole year. Plays 52 games down there, doesn't get a sniff. Okay. Gets called back up in 2015. Guess what? He's the best rookie goalie again. He's selected again to the NHL All-Rookie team. So he wins it in 2013 and 2015. This is 2014. Sounds almost like Johnny Bower. When Johnny Bower broke in with the New York Rangers, wins a starting position, and then the next year gets beat out by Gump Worsley. And Gump Worsley wins the Calder Trophy, and Johnny gets sent down to Cleveland. Providence and Cleveland. I think it was Providence first and then Cleveland. I may be wrong on that, but I think that was the order. And was in the minors for like the next 6 or 7 years till he was rescued by the Toronto Maple Leafs and Punch Imlach. So a little bit of I kind of thought of Johnny when I was thinking of Jake, and I was checking on Jamie Storr tonight when I saw that tonight was the anniversary, or the 14th of his 13th career shutout. I said, wait a minute. That guy won back-to-back on the all-rookie team. And then I thought, I got to get Jake in there. He went one better, did it over 3 years. So I thought it was a pretty cool stat. Switching to number 3, or 4, if you want to include with Jake and Jamie as one each. Larry Robinson, my dear friend, played his last regular season game ever on this day in 1992 for the Los Angeles Kings. It was game number 1,384. Good still for 15th on the all-time list. He finished with 208 goals. He picked up an assist or 2 in this game. 1, I believe. LA lost 3-2, I think, to Vancouver. And Larry ended up with 208 goals and 750 assists for 958 points. That's good for 9th still, the NHL. In fact, after you got the top 8 defensemen with 1,000 points, the next guy is Larry. He's the next guy at 958. So you don't necessarily think of him as a high-scoring defenseman. He had 2 seasons of over 80 points, but he wasn't anywhere near a 100-point guy. But he played 2 out of LA's 6 playoff games and then retired. But this day is the anniversary of his last regular season game, and he finished with his career plus 722. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the best in NHL history. Now, had Bobby Orr played full career, safe to say he would have shattered that, no question about it. Having said that, Larry does sit in first place at plus 722, and in fact, he's second to Bobby for the single season mark. Bobby doing plus 124 in 1971. Larry Robinson doing plus 120 in 1977. Imagine that. Larry actually told me one time, if you could believe this, and I find it hard to believe, but he told me to my face. So I had to take him at face value. But he said at one point late that season, he was actually up to plus 125. I said, Larry, how in God's name could you possibly have gone minus 5 the last 7 or 8 games of the season? But allegedly he did. And anyway, whether it's true or not, what is true is that he was plus 120. And when you think of Larry Robinson and you think of his start of his NHL career with the Montreal Canadiens, he scored that big goal for them against the Philadelphia Flyers in the semis in 73. It was kind of his coming out party. It was his first Stanley Cup. He ended up winning 6, as most of you know. And it's what he became as a force physically. His fight with Dave Schultz on February 17th, 1974 was a game changer. Remember, back on Gordie Howe's birthday on March 31st, I talked about his fight with Fontenato in February of 59. There's a half dozen fights in hockey history. The Eddie Shore night, where he took on 5 guys, 5 altercations, not all fistic, but 5 altercations. That's a night that's in Gordie and Lou, Larry and Dave Schultz for sure. Pierre Bouchard and Stan Jonathan. I think Bob Probert and the Marty McSorley fight that went 2 minutes and 12 seconds, and you get into a number of others that would be in the realm, if not right there in the same mention. John Ferguson and Eric Nestorenko in 65 and a couple others. But Larry and Schultz in 74, what happened was Schultz had beat the shit out of John Van Boxmeer in the first period. I mean, beat him, knocked him down, cut him, basically knocked him out. And, the Flyers were on their way, right? I mean, they went on to win the Cup that year and the next year, but they didn't play the Montreal Canadiens again until the finals in 76 in the playoffs. But that night, when the period ended, the benches, of course, there was an altercation on the ice, and everybody went to the altercation. If you haven't seen it, it's on YouTube. And what happened was Larry had gone to the room. And the story goes that Eddie Palchek came in and were coming through the door. He was a longtime trainer of the Montreal Canadiens. And just as he was about to say to Larry, there's a scrap on the ice, there's a brawl starting on the ice. Apparently, allegedly, again according to Larry, one of the red coat guys, one of the guys who told you where to go, where to sit, take your tickets and everything like that, came running in the room, said, "Larry, there's a brawl, you got to get out there." So if you have never seen it, put it on sometime. It's black and white, and the only footage of it was taken right off the TV that night. So sadly, 1974, it's February 17th. The reception wasn't the best, and it actually breaks up a little bit. But you see enough of it. And what you can see definitively is you see Larry come right through the right-hand side of the screen. And he's button hook around, coming through the entire crowd for one reason and one reason only. He's looking for Schultz. And he finds him right over to the left of the net. Camera left of the net. And he hooks up. And they start jawing and they start jerking. And I tell people all the time, if you freeze frame it and you get it right on, just before Larry throws that first shot, there's a smile. Just a little smile comes across his face. They list him at 6'3". I swear to God that man was all of 6'4", or is. I mean, when he played. 6'3". I know guys 6'3". He's bigger than 6'3". And he was going 220 pounds. That's a big man by 1970s standards. Farm boy tough, right hand from the floor that would knock out a horse. And that was definitive fight. And yeah, the Flyers went on, and Schultz did, to win 2 Stanley Cups. And some of their games were between Montreal and Philly were legendary affairs, especially that one. And I believe that it largely paved the way for Montreal's 4-game sweep of Philly in 1976. So just a little Larry Robinson stuff for you. Norris Trophy winner, Conn Smythe Trophy winner. He won a couple of Norrises, won a Conn Smythe, Hockey Hall of Fame, 6-time Stanley Cup. What more can you say? Number 19, retired. His dad, Les, I'll finish on this one. Kind of a personal note, again, in the late 70s. First time I ever saw him was in 71, the summer he got drafted. And he played a fastball game in Cars, Ontario. I grew up on the first line, Cars Road. And he was playing an exhibition game against the Cars Aces, the local intermediate team, which were very, very good. And Larry's with a team called Turpin Pontiacs, the car dealership in Ottawa, Turpin. A legendary squad back at that time. And that was the first time I saw him. I mean, you'd think you're looking at a skyscraper. I was 12 years old. And then in the late 70s, his dad was chair of the Metcalfe Fair, another town where Larry grew up in the town of Marvelville, very close to Metcalfe. And the Metcalfe Fair is one of the most legendary fairs in the rurals or the valley. And the tractor pull on Friday night was a place to be, believe me, hundreds and hundreds of people. And I used to run out of money, Beer tent was calling. So I needed more money. And I used to cash $20 checks. And I'd have to go to Les Robinson, God rest his soul, Larry's dad. I say, Mr. Robinson, can I cash another check, please? Hey, Liam, you're not spending all that in the beer tent, are you, son? No, sir. No, sir. No, I'm going to, go pick up some food. Yeah, whatever. Anyways, he was a big man, too. Larry came by the size, honestly. And Mo is a fantastic guy. His brother works at Wallace Service Center, arguably one of the, if not the greatest garage in the area. Right there with Parker's and Billy Boyvins anyway. So there's a little Larry Robinson stuff to finish on. I want to save a couple minutes here to do our toast because I could have waited till May 3rd on the anniversary of this man's passing, but today was his birthday. He would be 53 if he was alive today, and it's Steve Chiasson. I wonder if some of you remember him as a hockey player. He won the Memorial Cup with Guelph in 1986. Jacques Martin was a coach. Gary Roberts was on the team. A local guy from the Ottawa area here was a goaltender, Steve Gannett. They had a hell of a squad, and they won the Memorial Cup. And Steve Chiasson, and another guy too, Mark Tournier, was on that team. And I ended up signing Mark to play in the RA years later. And, he blew his shoulder out in a fight. And he should have made the NHL, but he didn't. And there's a name you probably never heard before. But if you look it up, he led Guelph in assists in the playoffs that year. And he was an outstanding defenseman, but he blew his shoulder out and he played overage, and that was it. He never got drafted, and it's a real shame. Anyway, Steve Chiasson was on that team, and he ended up going to the Detroit Red Wings. And Mark Tournier and Steve remained good friends. And when I was part owner of a bar called the Original Six in Ottawa, Mark said, I became friends with Mark, and he said, you want to go down to Montreal, see Montreal-Detroit play? We'll go out with Chaser after the game. I said, absolutely, I'm in. So we went down to the game, and we went out and hit a bunch of bars after, and who's with us but none other but Bob Probert. So that was a really, really cool night for me. Kevin McClelland, I think, was with us too, if I'm not mistaken. I have to think about it now. It was a long time ago, 33, 34 years ago. But Chaser was in, for those of you who remember, the Piastani punch-up in 1987 when the Russians came off the bench first and then we went on and kicked their ass. Chaser was in the middle of all that, just destroyed guys. He could fight. He could absolutely throw bombs. And we lost him tragically, far too young, in an accident after Carolina. Got beat out of the playoffs. He lived in the North Carolina area. He was coming back from a party. And unfortunately, a single vehicle accident and died. It doesn't matter what the situation was. Fact is, it was May 3rd of 1999. He was 32 years of age, I believe. I was on the radio, working morning show at Team 1200 when the news came across. We had to go with that, and I knew him personally, and that was a tough one to do, tough show to do that morning. So, gonna toast Steve Chiasson. Also going to toast a man named John Hughes. Throwing some names at you tonight that maybe you might not be all that familiar with. Probably not John. John was a Charlottetown boy. Oh, he passed away about 6 days ago. Maybe I should have done it then, but I'm glad to do it now because I've had a chance to talk to some people. Trent Burt being one. But today, a couple of conversations with Goldie Goldthorpe, who I wrote the book on, as you know, which was released just over a year ago in Thunder Bay, where Goldie was born, and the town near and dear to his heart, land of the tough guys. And he didn't really know John, but he played a couple of games against him, and he knew they had mutual friends. John had a very close friend named Kevin Devine, who was very close friends with Goldie. And John won a Memorial Cup with the Toronto Marlies in 1973. He played about 440 games pro, including 70 in the NHL, the bulk in the WHA. He didn't back down from anybody. Goldie said he saw him fight Battleship Kelly. I know John had a couple of bell ringers with Gary Howitt, among others, and he was 66 years old. And he died, I believe it was cancer, I think, if I remember correctly what Trent told me. But John Hughes was one tough dude, and he was a winner, and gone far too soon. And so I'm very honored tonight to send a toast out on his behalf and on Steve Chiasson's behalf. Two men that definitely in Chaser's case at 32, really too young, but even Johnny at 66, too young as well. So on behalf of them and the date April 14th, and thank you everybody for watching and for everybody else who's drinking with me, because I know a lot of you are, bottoms up. Have a good one. G'day. Stay strong.